Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast. This is your escape for real, unscripted conversations about sports, hobbies, life, and storytelling. No scripts, no forced takes, just Man Cave talk. Now, here's your host, Dan Casper.
We're in the offseason of Green Bay Packers football, but there's always plenty to talk about when it comes to the Packers, especially when they're still finalizing their coaching search and looking for a new special teams coordinator. We got the combine, we got franchise tags, all that is coming up, and helping us break it all down is our good friend from ESPN.com, ESPN NFL Nation, Packers reporter, Rob Demovsky, and also number one Blue Gold men's basketball fan, Rob Demovsky. Good morning, Rob. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, Dan, is that any better?
That is better. How you doing there, man? Good. Yeah.
Good. I'm good. Sorry about that. I don't know what the deal was.
No worries. No worries. Just glad it worked out. So, man, I know it's the off season for Green Bay and such, but we still got a lot of storylines here. And just recently, the Rich Bisaccia news of stepping down as special teams coordinator. So, let's start with that, Rob. Kind of late in the game or in the process.
Very.
Was this maybe a little bit of a surprise to you because it was so late?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously had a new defensive coordinator with Jeff Hafley getting the Dolphins job, and they got that taken care of fairly quickly. And then it was earlier this month, we talked to Brian Gutekunst, the general manager, and the topic of special teams, and Rich Bisaccia came up. And he, at that time, I believe it was February 4th, he left no doubt that Rich Bisaccia would be back. I mean, he talked about how much Bisaccia means to their culture and how much the players love him. So, yeah, very, very big surprise that by the time we got to, mid-February, something had changed and Bisaccia had decided to step down. And by all accounts, it sure seems like that's what it was. I mean, it doesn't seem like, the Packers moved on from him or Matt LaFleur fired him. It seems like this was Bisaccia's decision. Why that is at this point, not sure. But it definitely leaves them in a difficult spot because, Dan, there were 10 head coach openings, and I'm pretty sure most of them, if not all, have hired special teams coordinators for their new staffs, which leaves the Packers in a little bit of a bind. Some of the best candidates obviously have already been snatched up. Even Rich Bisaccia's assistant, Byron Storer, got the head special teams job at Cleveland. So, if they had wanted to promote from within, that would have been the guy, and he's off the market. So, going to be very interesting. Matt LaFleur might have to get creative. Maybe they find go to the college ranks. Maybe there's a veteran guy who has maybe been out of the league for a little bit. Or you take a chance on a young up-and-coming assistant somewhere, but, that's obviously risky.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I think we're all trying to figure out, but Matt LaFleur's also kind of shown that he doesn't really need that personal connection with him, right? I mean, you look at the last couple defensive coordinator positions, Jeff Hafley did sound like he, knew him all that well beforehand, now Jonathan Gannon. So I think a lot of people are looking like, okay, does he have any friendships? But how much did we really kind of factor that into trying to figure this out?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a huge factor. Obviously, all of these guys are they hire guys they're comfortable with, and that's whether they were comfortable with them because they worked with them, or comfortable with them because they came highly recommended, or just interviewed really well. And I believe that was the case with Jonathan Gannon. There was, no real connection there at all, and the LaFleur, liked him so much that he didn't want to lose him and wait to interview Jim Leonard, that he decided he better hire, Jonathan Gannon right away. So I think, that's why I think anything is on the board here for special teams. And look, this is it's a hire that I feel like I say this every time it's open. They've got to get this right. Mm-hmm. And this goes back to even before, Matt LaFleur. I mean, the last special teams coordinator here who wasn't fired before, obviously, this just happened, I believe was in 1998 when Mike Holmgren left and his special teams coordinator, Nolan Cromwell, went with them to Seattle. Otherwise, every special teams coordinator the Packers have had since then has been fired, and including three that Matt LaFleur, two that Matt LaFleur fired and then hired Bisaccia and now he'll be on his fourth special teams coordinator, whoever that is.
I know Goody had mentioned in his presser that somebody had asked him about, focusing on special teams and such, and he mentioned that he feels like they do maybe a better job than when Ted Thompson did it, because he kind of talked about Ted Thompson, maybe didn't believe in and answer. But is that, do you kind of agree with all that? Because I think a lot of fans probably said they did agree with that analogy.
Yeah, I think I have a hard time buying that as well. I would agree probably with those fans. I mean, they've never just kept the guy strictly for special teams. Not that a lot of teams do. They always want guys to be backups at other positions. And to me, like it's part coaching too, in terms of willingness to use starters on special teams and key players. I mean, they basically let Keyshawn Nixon dictate that he wasn't going to return kicks anymore after he said, look, I don't want to do it anymore after the 2024 season. And he didn't last year. And he's really good at it. And I understand his role as a full-time cornerback was going to be greater than it was the year before. But, at some point you have to make a commitment both from a roster building standpoint and from a coaching standpoint that, we are going to commit to this a little bit more than we have.
Rob, I know we got free agency coming up, and teams can use franchise tags and such. And what position, I kind of wanted to get your take on it, that really we haven't heard a whole lot of, at least from a fan's perspective. How important should it be for Green Bay to address that backup quarterback position, considering we saw how important Malik Willis was the last couple of years for this team?
Yeah, I mean, basically Malik Willis won them 3 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I have that right. I mean, he won them the 2 games he started, and then the Jacksonville game that he finished. Now, I don't know, I guess he didn't exactly win them, any games this year, right? Now, he did keep them in the Chicago game in the regular season, kept them in that game and went to overtime. But, it's very important. Desmond Ridder is a guy they picked up late in the year. After I guess it was after Clayton Tune started and then got cut in Minnesota. So, Ridder is an interesting guy. He's been around a while, but, whether that's whether it's a draft pick or another veteran type signing, or even like a trade like they did with Malik Willis, they're going to have competition for that backup job. They're not just going to hand it to Desmond Ridder. So I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because look, we all know, or at least we think we know, that Malik Willis is going to get much bigger money, not necessarily like major blockbuster quarterback money, but much bigger money than the Packers probably can afford to spend on a backup quarterback. And Malik Willis is going to get a chance to go compete somewhere. I don't know if anybody's going to hand him a starting job, but someone's probably going to pay him, somewhere in the 12 to 16, 18 million range to either compete for a job or have a chance to.
Do you see Green Bay, if you look at these free agents, the Rashan Walkers, the Quay Walkers, the Romeo Doubs and such, do you see any of these guys coming back to Green Bay?
It's a great question. Dan, I wrote a piece last week about raising the possibility that all those guys could be gone. They have basically 6 key unrestricted free agents. I think the guys you mentioned, plus Sean Ryan and Kingsley Enagbare. Those honestly, those last 2 I mentioned would probably be the 2 maybe more likely to be re-signed. I don't see any world in which they re-sign Romeo Doubs or Rashan Walker. Quay Walker, they would like to, but I don't know if that's a luxury that they can afford at this point. Who else? You mentioned one other guy other than Ryan and Walker. Willis is the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be probably, if they could get Kingsley Enagbare back for, 8 or 10 million, that's probably not a bad deal. They have typically not re-signed some of those interior offensive linemen the last couple of years. They've let Josh Myers and John Runyon go, so that probably works against Sean Ryan. But he played very well at center, and I would assume that they're going to move on from Elton Jenkins.
Was it last year at the Combine, too, when Goody talked about, wanting to extend Quay Walker instead of the 5th-year option, and just kind of wanted to extend him and lower that cap hit, and now nothing has happened there. Is that a little surprising they weren't able to get anything done for him?
Yeah, maybe. I think that, I think Quay had said midway through the year that they had been negotiating, and made it even sound like there might have been an offer on the table. I'm not really sure how firm an offer that was, or if they were just having preliminary talks. But that would be the one guy that out of that group that, if you had your pick, that you would like to re-sign for a number of reasons. One, he's played pretty well, and two, it's a position where they're not as deep as, say, receiver. I mean, Doubs is just he had a really nice finish to the season, but they have so many other options at receiver that you don't really have to spend that money. But Quay Walker is at a spot where really the only other guy, that you could even think about filling in for him would be Tyron Hopper, who's played very sparingly over the last couple of years since he was a draft pick in 2024.
So the combine is next week, so like, can you kind of give us a little peek behind the curtain? Like what's that day like for somebody like you that goes over there and covers that?
Yeah. So, no, for me, like a lot of people think that, we go to the combine to watch all the college players work out and, look at the bench press numbers. And that for me and a lot of beat writers, that's not exactly the primary focus of the combine. It's more to be able to talk to your team personnel. Like, for example, Brian Gutekunst will hold another session with reporters, even though he just talked like 2-3 weeks ago. But we'll get a chance to get him. And then honestly, it's the opportunity to bump into, scouts from the Packers, scouts from other teams, assistant coaches, agents. That's where a lot of the free agent groundwork is laid. I mean, you'll walk through the convention center in Indianapolis or any of the hotel lobbies, and you'll see, Russ Ball talking to any number of agents, about guys that they have. I mean, you're not supposed to technically talk to players on other teams, but let's just be real here. Let's say they're going to talk to Elton Jenkins about either cutting him or trying to work out a revised contract. Well, that agent's got 15 other players that are going to be free agents. So don't tell me that the Packers and other teams aren't asking those guys, hey, so what do you think so-and-so is going to do, or what's he looking for? Same with, they'll meet with Romeo Doubs' agent, same thing. He's got a lot of clients as well. So that's where a lot of the groundwork for it's like the pre-tampering period that happens in the NFL. And I think that's a lot of what happens there. To be honest with you, as a reporter, it's a lot of roaming the hallways and hanging out and waiting for people that you might want to talk to get a little nugget of information from. That's more what it's about. By the end of the week, we'll have all the results of all the testing and the workouts and the physicals and all that stuff. But that sort of comes out after the combine. Fans, I'm sure, probably love to watch, NFL Network and them showing the 40-yard dash times. But I'll be honest with you, that's not the stuff that I go to the combine for.
Last question here for you, Rob. I know some fans are wondering, why hasn't there been any announcements yet on the coaching staff and such? Is it just something as simple as LaFleur is just going to get all of them settled and make one big announcement like we've seen before?
Yeah, that's the way he prefers to do it for some reason. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't even think the coaching staff was formally announced last year until April. I do remember being at the NFL owners meetings last year, and which is in late March. And I mean, we were asking LaFleur, and he was talking about all of the new hires. I think that time it was like, DeMarcus Covington, the D-line coach, was the big new one. And he was obviously talking about it and hadn't even actually been announced yet. So I think we know some of the hires. We certainly don't know all of them. Some of the lower level assistants had probably honestly already been filled. And we just don't know who they are. But yeah, it's nothing like they haven't filled these or they're having trouble filling these for whatever reason. The Packers, and as you know, Dan, some of these teams announce like, oh, we have just interviewed this guy for this job. Packers do not do any of that.
Yeah,
they do not announce who they've interviewed for any job. It's just sort of always the way they've operated, and made it up to us to try to scramble and find that stuff out. And hopefully we do. We find out as many of those as possible to pass that along to the fans.
Well, you do an amazing job. He's Rob Demovsky, ESPN NFL Nation, Packers reporter. Appreciate the time, as always, sir, that you give us here in Eau Claire, and travel safe next week over at the Combine, okay?
All right, I'll be in La Crosse for the Blue Gold's regular season finale on Saturday, hoping that maybe they can finish it off with a win.
Well, hey, the last time you watched La Crosse at Blue Golds, they came away with a win, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you're the best. You're the good luck charm, so...
and that was also the day that Matt LaFleur signed his contract extension, which I wrote in the middle of the Sonic text.
I wasn't going to say that, but I was kind of watching. I'm like, is that what you're doing over there? So breaking news and watching hoops. So.
Yeah.
But maybe you'll have something to break that day too. So who knows?
Who knows? Best of both worlds, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you, Rob. We appreciate it, and
all right.
best of luck.
You got it, Dan. Anytime, my friend. We'll see you.
Thank you. There you go, Rob Demovsky. Again, ESPN.com. Make sure you check him out on the X at Rob Demovsky. Also, ESPN.com.